Hi, I'm Liana, and if you're new here, I help others find their authentic self and explore their wider universe using hypnosis and soul-led travel, as well as my own intuitive abilities as tools for them to do so. And today I want to talk about your contracts. These are soul contracts and karmic contracts, because it's a great time now to change your contracts, get rid of old ones that no longer serve you. You may even have parallel contracts that are ready for you to choose which ones to step into. And contracts are sort of one of my areas of specialty in the work that I do through hypnosis and intuitive readings. So you may be wondering, what is a contract? So if you don't know, a soul contract are any contracts that a soul has that are an agreement or an understanding of what they want to experience, what lessons they want to learn in order to grow and evolve. They incorporate one lifetime, multiple lifetimes, can be through time, space, and dimensions. So you do have like a master contract, which includes all of your contracts. You could think of this as like your book. And it's sort of like a choose your own adventure book. So it has all the things that you want to experience or grow during your incarnations and embodiments, all the learnings, all the understandings, all the karma you need to clear. However, it's not laying out fully all of your choices and decisions because you still have free will. So I say it's your choose your own adventure book because no matter what free will choice you make, things will kind of line up and reshuffle to where you have the agreed upon experiences, connect with the agreed upon people in order to clear karma, experience lessons, connect with soulmates who have agreed to play certain roles in your life in order to attempt to achieve the lessons you wanted to learn in this life and experience. These could be contracts with specific people. They could be contracts with organizations, teachers, guides, communities, councils, etc. They can also be with negative entities, which I've experienced in my work. They include karmic contracts or just soul contracts. Now, the difference between karmic contracts and soul contracts: karmic contracts are required in order to offset karma that you've gained from other life experiences in this dimension, in the third dimension, in this earth school that we're all in. They are planned at the time of conceiving a certain life, because all time is happening now. So you're conceiving lives at one point in time, multiple lives at one point, and planning it based on other life experiences you were having in this earth plane to allow for you and or other souls involved to learn and grow beyond their karma making experience, which would be something that's infringed upon others' free will or gone against the natural order of creation within the universe. And soul contracts are not based on karma. They can be with an individual, organization, teacher that's agreed to fill a certain role for you in order to grow and evolve. Whatever you wanted to experience to catalyze your own evolution is something that can be included in that. And so why can they be cleared now if you haven't maybe fulfilled that karma or attempted to clear that karma? So now that we have reached a certain level of understanding, of consciousness, you can choose to leap out of some of your contracts because you can learn more quickly now once you reach a certain level of consciousness through your own expanded awareness and ability to empathize and learn without having a physical experience. Where I've seen this come up for myself pretty soon after I sort of had more of a free-flowing connection with my guides. It came up pretty quickly that they wanted me to cut cords and clear karmic contracts. how they wanted me to do that, which is unique to me because they knew I was going to be working with people's contracts, was to name all the people that I had a karmic contract with. They wanted me to clear, understand the karma creating event, and what sort of the agreement was, how to clear that karma or reconcile that karma. Luckily for me, a majority of them were 3 kind of overarching events: war, so killing others in war, or someone killing me in war, witch persecutions, me being responsible for someone's death through a witch persecution, or someone being responsible for my death in a witch persecution. And then I was in a leadership position in one life and killed my council. So all the council members that I killed, I was making up for that karma. Now, there were a few other outlier situations on that list, but I had, like 3 pages of people. And I really wished I had a high school yearbook during that process in order to remember all the names. And I'm sure there were probably other ones that have been cleared that I didn't remember the name of, but I remembered enough. The way to reconcile a lot of those contracts was somehow through love. So loving them like a sibling, loving them as a partner, them loving me as a partner, as well as like mentorship kind of roles in the workplace, and standing up for helping someone speak their truth, sticking up for them in a situation where they were silenced, things like that. Beyond that, I've seen contracts come up in my work with, especially in energetic clearing. It's rare, but I have seen it more and more, especially as we're clearing larger attachments now, are individuals having agreements with negative entities. I've seen this with reptilians and jinns and fallen angels. And these can be ancestral contracts. So someone in your lineage maybe made a contract decades ago for some personal gain with a negative entity. And in that contract, it said it applied to, everyone down that line. Or you as a soul made a contract with an entity lifetimes ago. I've also seen it with negative counsels. And what would clue me in would be any sort of attachment or a lot of attachments that sound like they have too much control over someone's energetic systems. I've had individuals' higher selves in hypnosis tell me that there's contracts that need to be cleared with entities or councils. I've had it come up where someone had a contract with their higher self, that their higher self's connection with them would be limited in order to allow them to experience the most growth by having to navigate things without their guidance, which was an interesting one. I've had contracts with larger organizations come up in their workplace, and things like that needed to be cleared because they weren't for their highest good anymore, and they'd already learned the lessons they needed to learn. So you're probably asking why, if they've learned the lessons are no longer needed, why aren't those contracts just being cleared on their own now that they're expired? Well, sometimes, so when they're expired, so let's say you have gone past the karma reconciliation point and you still have that contract or you still have that karmic cord. The karma, you might not be beholden to the karma anymore, but the cord still is there and it's still weighing you down. If you have contracts with things like negative energies or entities, they're not going to want to release you of that agreement, and they may try to stick around or manipulate the terms of the agreement so that they can stick around, and will be impacting your energy regardless. And sometimes like the one with the higher self, they want you to have the awareness that that was happening. So if they want you to have the further knowledge, gain the learning from that experience, sometimes it needs to come into your awareness before it can be released. And now that's going to get me to cords, because I already mentioned karmic cords. So from my perspective, there are 3 types of cords: energetic cords, which I think is the type that most people know about, soul cords, and karmic cords. Energetic cords can be formed with any individual, organization, entity where there is a share of energy. And that can be positive. It can be, a mutual gain of energy, or it can be sort of parasitical and vampiric. That's what I would call like a toxic energy cord. There's karmic cords, which you have a karmic cord with anyone you have a karmic relationship with. And these cords act as a tether to draw you together to have the experiences that you need to have in order to try to reconcile that karma. So no matter your free will choices that you make throughout your life, you will always sort of end up where you need to be at some point in your life to try to reconcile that karma, as well as soul cords. So anyone you have a soul contract with. This could be soul family, it could be not soul family, but someone in your soul group who's agreed to fulfill a certain role for you, or you've agreed to fill a certain role for them. And it's similar to karmic cords, where they act as a tether to make sure that you are drawn to each other no matter your free will choices that you make. Energetic cords, relatively easy to cut, especially if they're toxic and not for your best and highest good. Karmic cords cannot be cut until either you've reconciled the karma or you've gained the understanding and learning that reconciling the karma would create. So remember, you're able to now, once you gain a certain level of consciousness and awareness, learn without having the physical experience. So you could learn the lesson just by gaining further empathy in a similar situation, or learning more about the karma creation event and having the understanding that you need to have. I also want to talk about sort of contracts with larger entities, organizations, religions and deities and things like that, because I think these are going to come up more in the future. And so I want to talk about them. So these larger contracts are something that I personally deal with because it's part of one of my spiritual roles or astral roles, is dealing with larger, what I call them master contracts, but you may think of them as something else. So these could be contracts that corporations have, groups, secret societies, deities, and things like that. I personally deal with larger contracts that are kind of for the collective astrally, but corporations, these groups and deities, I want to talk about them because they have their kind of own energetic entity that could be feeding or providing energy to others. So like a corporation have, all the people that work for that corporation, you have all the consumers of that corporation, and then you have all the people who maybe have a negative opinion about that corporation, or just an opinion in general. It doesn't necessarily have to be negative. And that all creates an energetic entity. And this entity, depending on your participation in it, can be feeding off your energy, or depending on what type of corporation it is, could be giving you energy. I'd say more likely it's feeding off energy, just because that's the way our society is set up. So they have contracts with the collective on how they operate, what their role is, what they're here to do, how they're evolving, how they're helping you evolve. And just because they might be feeding on your energy, they could still be helping you evolve, because they're helping you reach that wake up point where it's like, I don't want this corporation or this group to be feeding on my energy, or what am I putting my energy into? So by withdrawing your energy from whatever organization or group that is, that's taking some of your own sovereignty back and your own power. So you can also cut cords with any, thing that's not another human being as well. Deities I want to talk about for a second, because I've mentioned them before about maybe some precautions or things you want to think through before you work with deities. And I just want to mention this again because deities have had a long cycle. There's deities for most cultures around the world, and there's different deities depending on the culture that match that culture. There's deities, the same deities who have 1,000 names or 5 names, and each name has a different energetic entity depending on how people have worshipped them, how they've worked with them, how they've invoked their name, what energy they've fed towards that energy in order to work with it, creates its own energetic entity that are separate from the actual soul that maybe was incarnated or embodied that deity if they were actually embodied on earth. And you want to be careful working with those because, like I said, depending on how you're working with those energies, you might be working with the entity or you might be working with the actual deity. It just depends on how careful you are, your own discernment, and those energetic entities do feed off your energy. I don't see it personally as negative, although just because deities have been used for different things by different people and different groups for different purposes, that's a lot of different energy going into one entity. So it could have lots of different outcomes. So depending on what you're aligned to is what you're going to get when you work with a deity. So if you're not aligned to love vibration, highest love and light vibration, and you're not confident in your own discernment, you may get an energetic entity who is reflecting back to you your own alignment, which can be risky. It can be tricky. You might call in a deity that's not of the highest love and light vibration or an energetic entity, because like I said, some of them have multiple names. And I have experienced myself with deity figures that have different names, some of the names have different energetic frequencies. Some of them, let's say they have 3 names, 2 of the names could be aligned with love and light, and 1 could be aligned with more service to self polarity and more of an egoic mindset that you might not want to partake in. And this is also how several different types of entities are created by the thoughts, feelings, and beliefs that groups of people have. You can hear it referred to as egregores. So that's an entity from collective thoughts and emotions. Creates its own conscious entity that can feed on your energy, something that you'd also want to cut cords with as well as you're working with them. Especially if you're very receptive, especially if you're beginning sort of your own intuitive journey or psychic journey, you're going to want to cut cords with any beings that you're interacting with every time you do. And to do that's very easy. You can ask Archangel Michael to come and cut energetic cords for you. You can sage and hold the intention of cutting the cords. You can do a cord cutting meditation. There's many on YouTube, so just find one that you resonate with. and maybe that's one I should be making next. I have a few on my list to make, so that could be something that is up for me. If you feel like you have contracts, I would be happy to work with you. I've had to personally do this for myself, especially a lot recently. So when I had my big awakening, I obviously jumped onto a contract that was my spiritually awakened self, stepping into the roles that I'm stepping into now. But I also have found out recently that I planned 2 parallel contracts for that journey, and I had the chance to decide which one I wanted to step into. And they were both really great. They were just a little bit different. But after I chose that, my guides were like, well, now you need to decide what's in the contract, because I guess I only wrote out the 2 contracts to a certain point and left the rest sort of bare bones. And my higher self was like, well, we wanted to give you the opportunity to decide what's in it depending on what you wanted and the growth you were at. And I was kind of surprised. I was like, why would I do that? Why would I leave it bare bones and not write out what should be in it? But it sort of makes sense, and was an empowering moment to like detail out everything I wanted to be in my contract. And even then, I'm sure it will change. And you can always add to it, take things away as you go along. It's not always set in stone. And like, just a funny thing, when I was doing it, my soul came in and was like, well, you need to decide, because I don't have children now. She's like, you need to decide about children. And I was like, I don't want to do that right now. So I was like, I'm going to leave that, off the contract for now. And I'll decide that at a different point. So, lots of funny things can come up as you go through this process. But if your own contracts are something you think you need to work on, contracts with other people, or energetic entities, I'm happy to work with you. Like I said, it comes up in hypnosis. It can also come up in other intuitive consults that I'm starting to do more and more of, and will be having available to book soon on my website. So if this is of interest to you, you can like and subscribe to my channel, or just keep a watch out. And